I am Rebecca Conard, Professor of History Emerita from Middle Tennessee State University. Doing history, for me, means producing or creating knowledge about the past. And then it's kind of two things, producing it and then communicating it. Historians use various methods to interrogate the past or ask questions about the past, and to do that as objectively as possible, meaning becoming aware of your biases, and to do it ethically. But all of them involve gathering data or evidence, which in essence are bits of information that come from disparate sources, meaning a lot of different kinds of sources. And then asking questions about them in order to make sense of all of this information or to derive meaning from it. Now, you can kind of visualize this process like assembling a gigantic jigsaw puzzle, except in the case of history, many of the pieces are going to be missing because everything that happens in the past doesn't get recorded or doesn't get archived somewhere. So you're always dealing with part of the record and trying to create a plausible story. How does one begin to gather evidence? Because you have to have a starting point. And the short answer is by asking questions, but that is not at all a straightforward process. It's really detective work. And in many cases, that's kind of where historians begin. They begin by kind of looking at what other people have written or have worked on and kind of asking questions about what they've done, asking different questions about that. But it doesn't always begin that way. Sometimes it's sort of a question that comes at you from somewhere else, or that comes out of your own curiosity. I would say the way Iowans have interacted with the environment across time has been more directly related to developing our environment for agricultural purposes. We have this incredibly fertile soil, and most of Iowans' efforts have been directed at developing the agricultural potential, so that what we now have in the state is really more of a garden. It's a managed environment for maximum agricultural production. Thomas McBride was the first to call for what became the idea of state parks in the late 19th century. But through all this networking and these organizations that were formed, that ultimately developed into a relationship where academic scientists were working with politicians at the state level to literally create the bill that became the 1917 State Park Act, where you have scientists who are helping to craft policy. We can't even imagine that today. But it was possible in the early part of the 20th century. And then during the 1930s, there was the good fortune through federal programs that were designed to ease the Great Depression. So there were programs and a lot of money that were coming to the state level, which gave Iowa, now that we had some designated places, provided a lot of that funding that enabled the development of those areas so that they were with buildings and roads and other facilities that made them really accessible to a lot of the public.